The Clone Troopers were the dominant force that proudly fought for the Republic during the Clone Wars era, laying down their lives for the Republic despite being manufactured by them. They were instilled with a sense of loyalty and honor solely to the Republic, but above all, the Supreme Chancellor. Following the conclusion of the Clone Wars though, the Clone Troopers slowly transitioned into the new Empire's Stormtroopers, and for several years in Legends fought proudly for the ranks of the Empire, taking upon themselves the new mantle of Emperor Palpatine, and fighting with the same honor and ferocity that they had in the Age of the Republic. However, the Clone Troopers were eventually disbanded and removed from the ranks of the Stormtrooper Corps, as natural-birthed individuals were introduced to the Corps, and given an opportunity for the more normal individuals in the galaxy to make a living serving the Empire. It was universally known that the Clone Troopers did not like the natural-birthed Stormtroopers, and vice versa, with the Stormtroopers believing that the previous iteration of the clones were out of date, and were not as skilled as a natural-birthed individual, while the Clone Troopers believed that the Stormtroopers were soft, and a far cry from the great warriors of the past of the Clone War. The two factions would eventually fight, but not under the circumstances of a galactic civil war. Clone Troopers would come against natural-birth Stormtroopers as well as clone Stormtroopers on the planet of Kamino, and today we will discuss the unknown war between the two, the hidden war that put brother against brother and clone against clone, when the clone army of Kamino faced off against the Galactic Empire. Officially, there was never a clone rebellion on Kamino. Unofficially, approximately 20 years after we were created, a special detachment of the Imperial 501st Legion was dispatched to Kamino directly, with orders to eradicate an army of clones that had been bred to take arms against the Empire. The end of the Clone Wars resulted not only in the near destruction of the Jedi Order, but also the rise of the Galactic Empire in the place of the fallen Republic. Seeking to secure the vital cloning facilities that were responsible for providing the Empire with the clones to help secure Emperor Palpatine's rise to ultimate power, the Imperial control was firmly established upon Kamino, established however through force of arms, and not willingly, as the Imperials began an occupation of Kamino. Although Kamino would continue to grow more Stormtroopers for the Empire, a small group of Kaminoans grew resentful of the Empire's treatment of Kamino as a virtual military police state. In response to the Imperial presence on their world, the Kaminoans launched a covert rebellion against the Empire by discreetly breeding a new army of clone troopers under the Empire's watchful eye, and in complete secrecy. Little did the Empire know there was an army growing directly beneath them with the intention of overthrowing them and driving them from the planet of Kamino. Every single one of these clones was based on the genetic template of Jango Fett. To the Kaminoans' surprise, years earlier, they had introduced new clone templates into the cloning process, meaning that not every single Stormtrooper that was in fact a clone was a clone of the template of Jango Fett, as this was the first step of the Stormtroopers moving to more natural-birthed individuals, as it was a common belief that the clone template of Jango Fett was becoming less reliable and weaker as days gone by. Unlike the first clone army though, that had been bred for the Republic, the newest generation of clones were engineered with absolute loyalty to Kamino. Over the next decade, after the conclusion of the Clone Wars, the Anti-Imperial Clone Troopers were grown and trained to eventually liberate Kamino from Imperial rule. Wearing Phase 1 armor and composed entirely of jet troopers, the Anti-Imperial clones were augmented with a series of ARC troopers, as well as a few LAAT gunships. Approximately 20 years after creating the first generation of clones based on the Fett template, the anti-troopers were fully grown, armed, and evidently prepared to fight against their Imperial brothers and liberate Kamino. Around the same time, however, the Empire discovered Kamino's clandestine operation and responded by sending an elite detachment of the 501st Legion directly to Kamino in order to destroy the Kaminoan rebellion and restore the Imperial rule to its cloning centers. This sent great fear through the Kaminoans, as the 501st was no ordinary legion of stormtroopers that belonged to the Empire. After the conclusion of the Clone Wars, the 501st were put directly under the rule of Lord Vader, Dark Lord himself, and proved to be one of the greatest tools under his command. The Legion was often deployed in places where its advanced fighting skills could be used to make a political statement for the Empire. Most of the 501st missions were completely classified, as to hide what was going on from the Imperial Senate. The 501st were also extremely feared as they were the most proficient group of killing Jedi of the entire Stormtrooper Corps. This time around though, the 501st's main target was the Kamino capital, the Tipoca City cloning facility, by then occupied by the Kaminoan rebels and the Anti-Troopers. The clone troopers belonging to the 501st met the Anti-Troopers with disgust, believing them to be even more inferior than the Stormtroopers that now occupied most of the Imperial Army. Hatred surged through the veins of the 501st. Boba Fett, also a clone of the long-dead Jango Fett, was hired to serve as the 501st mission commander during the retaking of Kamino, due to his extensive knowledge of the inner layout and workings of the Tipoca City. To prevent any chances of encouraging other insurrections throughout the galaxy, the mission to Kamino was completely off the record, as the mission to Kamino was actually one of the few missions that greatly concerned Emperor Palpatine, and was in fact one of the first signs of rebellion against the Galactic Empire that the galaxy had ever seen, believing that even if Kamino was utterly stomped out by the forces of the Empire, it would spark hope throughout the galaxy, and perhaps maybe even prove that the Empire was not invincible. When the engagement finally started, the entire battle was virtually lost to the Anti-Troopers from the start. Despite their advanced training by the Kaminoan cloners, the younger Fett clones were outmatched by their older and more experienced Imperial brothers, none of whom had any reservations about gunning down their fellow clone. Aside from possessing many veteran troopers from the Clone Wars and superior firepower, the 501st Legion was greatly assisted by Boba Fett, who proved to be even more valuable than originally anticipated. The bounty hunter directly commanded his forces on site and led the stormtroopers into Tipoca City, killing the Anti-Troopers wherever they encountered them, with Boba Fett even going out of his way to eliminate every single Anti-Trooper within the city, believing them a disgrace to his father's great legacy. Unwilling to risk losing what remained of Jango Fett's blood, the main source of producing the Fett clones, one of the 501st's primary objectives was to capture a container that held a sample of Fett's DNA. After storming Tipoca City and retrieving the container, the 501st brought Jango Fett's blood sample to a landing platform and an Imperial shuttle awaited its arrival, as it was revealed that Jango Fett's blood was the only thing that stopped the Empire from completely crushing the Anti-Troopers immediately. From there, the shuttle took Fett's DNA off planet to safety while the 501st fought against their rebel brethren. After gaining further ground from the outside of the city, the 501st went on to fulfill its next primary objective, destroying the Kaminoan life support systems in order to kill all of the rebel clones that had not been deployed yet, thus preventing the Kaminoans from raising more Anti-Troopers against the Empire in the future. Despite being protected by numerous elite ARC troopers, the rebel clones failed to prevent the 501st from killing the undeveloped clones within the facility. After securing most of Tipoca City from the outside, Boba Fett and the 501st Legion proceeded to crowd the remaining Anti-Troopers and ARC troopers onto the platforms where they were brutally wiped out, in a mass storm of blaster fire. As the fighting dragged on, the Kaminoan rebel leaders saw the hopelessness of their situation and attempted to retreat by utilizing their last LAAT gunship. Their efforts, though, were utterly in vain, as the 501st managed to destroy the gunship, along with the Kaminoans that were on the ships as well. When the battle came to an end, none of the rebel clones were left alive. With his assignment completed, Boba Fett left the 501st Legion to mop up on Kamino, while he returned to deal with his own personal affairs as a bounty hunter. Although the stormtroopers of the 501st Legion proved their loyalty to the Galactic Empire once again, the circumstances surrounding the battle convinced Emperor Palpatine that a clone army, composed entirely of clones based on one genetic source, was too susceptible to corruption. From that point on, it was decided that the new clone troopers would be created from various more templates that had already been introduced. The Empire even resorted to enlisting more regular humans into the Stormtrooper Corps, though the 501st Legion remained completely composed purely of Jango Fett's progeny for the time being, spared from reintroducing normal Stormtroopers into their ranks. The rest of the Imperial Army, however, became increasingly diverse through an ever-growing pool of enlisted troopers and alternate sources of clone. Thus, the clone revolt on Kamino was indirectly responsible for turning the clones of Jango Fett into a minority within the army that they had once filled as a whole, an irony that the Fett clones neither appreciated nor ever grew accustomed to. Roughly a decade after the incident on Kamino, Commander Cody was bitterly resentful of the Imperial Army's pitiful decline in operational operational effectiveness. In addition to that, Cody absolutely hated enlist stormtroopers, dismissing them as incompetent idiots that were utterly expendable. But that was the full story of the battle that resulted in Emperor Palpatine replacing the clone troopers with normal birthed individuals. I'm sure you guys all recognize this from the original Battlefront 2's campaign, as when I once played this as a kid, this was by far my favorite mission, and I love that they actually expanded a full story about the battle. But what are your thoughts on this, and the single battle that caused Emperor Palpatine to change his mind about the clone troopers, and how the stormtroopers and clone troopers of the Galactic Army of the Empire faced off against the anti-troopers of Kamino? If you guys enjoyed these longer form story videos, hit that like button as it shows me that you really do and want to see more like it. As always, my friends, thank you guys so much for watching. May the Force be with you and have a great day.